Hello everyone, this is Dr. P. Mary Anupama, Head of the Department of Biochemistry, St. Joseph's College for Women, here with the topic Mechanism of Urine Formation. The topics that I'll be dealing through this lecture include the basic introduction, followed by overview of urine formation, glomerular filtration pressure, the forces that are governing the filtration and net filtration pressure, tubular reabsorption, tubular secretion, countercurrent mechanism in urine formation, and then final concentration of urine. Urine formation, it is the vital physiological process which is carried out by the kidneys to remove the metabolic waste and also maintain internal balance. This process, it involves series of well coordinated steps that take place within the nephrons, which are nothing but the functional units of the kidney. This process, it ensures that most of the metabolic waste products like the urea, the salts if in excess, and water, they are eliminated, while useful substances which include glucose, amino acids, etc., they are reabsorbed and retained in the body. So, this process of urine formation, it primarily involves three major steps, which are filtration, glomerular filtration, tubular reabsorption, and tubular secretion. Along with this, a specialized mechanism known as the countercurrent mechanism, which helps in concentration of the urine. Overview of urine formation. Urine formation, it starts with the filtration of the blood in the glomerulus, the tuft of capillaries which are present in the Bowman's capsule. This is followed by selective reabsorption and secretion in the nephron tubule. About 180 liters of filtrate formed daily in the kidney. Out of all this, only 1 to 1.5 liters of urine, it is finally excreted out. This indicates that most of it is reabsorbed. It is reabsorbed back into the bloodstream. So the three basic processes which take place here in the urine formation are, we have the glomerular filtration, tubular reabsorption, and tubular secretion. Finally comes the excretion, wherein the urine is excreted out. The first step in urine formation is glomerular filtration. So this glomerular filtration, it takes place at the renal corpuscle, and the renal corpuscle, it includes the tuft of capillaries which are the glomerulus and the Bowman's capsule. Blood enters through the glomerulus through the efferent arteriole and leaves the Bowman's capsule via the efferent arteriole. The pressure within the glomerular capillaries that forces water, glucose, salts, and even urea to get filtered into the Bowman's capsule. This forms here the glomerular filtrate, and this is known as ultrafiltration, where large molecules such as protein and blood cells, they remain here without getting filtered, while the filtrate will be comprising of all the smaller ones. The glomerular filtration process, this is governed by three forces which act opposite to each other. So we have the glomerular hydrostatic pressure, which promotes the filtration, while we have two opposing forces, which are the osmotic pressure of the plasma proteins as well as the capsular pressure, which is because of the filtrate which is present here. So these two will be acting opposite the glomerular hydrostatic pressure, finally resulting in the filtrate formation. Glomerular filtration and pressures. This figure, it explains the GFR, that is glomerular filtration rate, and even the forces that are controlling the glomerular filtration rate. Let us understand first the blood flow. Blood enters into this glomerulus through the efferent arteriole at a rate of 625 ml per minute plasma. Due to the high pressure here in the glomerular capillaries, a portion of the plasma, it is filtered down into this Bowman's capsule. So out of all this, we see that around 125 ml of filtrate is formed per minute, and over 500 it leaves through the efferent arteriole. So the filtrate fraction, it is 20%. It is 20%. So 125 ml filtrate is formed out of the 625 ml which has reached. So 125 by 625 is 0.2 and the percentage is 20%. So the rest of it, it is going into the circulation. Now coming to the forces that are governing here, we have the glomerular hydrostatic pressure, which is around 60 mmHg. This one, it pushes the fluid into the Bowman's capsule, while the two opposing forces, which are the capsular hydrostatic pressure of around 15 mmHg and the osmotic pressure of the plasma proteins which are present in the blood, that also opposes filtration, which is around 29 mmHg to 30 mmHg. So finally, when you evaluate the net filtration pressure, it will be around 16 mmHg. As indicated, the glomerular hydrostatic pressure, it is 60 mmHg, while the opposing pressures 15 mmHg, that is the capsular pressure, while in human beings the osmotic pressure of plasma proteins, it is around 30 mmHg. So when we try to find out the net filtration pressure, NFP, it will be a sum of the opposing forces subtracted from the glomerular hydrostatic pressure, which comes to around 15 mmHg. So this pressure, it is driving the filtration. Now let us understand tubular reabsorption. So tubular reabsorption, it is the second step of urine formation, and it involves selective reabsorption of useful substances from the filtrate back into the blood. So this process, it occurs at different parts of the nephron, mainly the proximal convoluted tubule, the loop of Henle, the distal convoluted tubule, and even the collecting duct. In the proximal convoluted tubule, most of the reabsorption will be taking place. Nearly all the glucose and even the water, the amino acids, you see that around 60% of water is reabsorbed here. And even salts, they are reabsorbed. The epithelial cells of this part of the nephron, that is the proximal convoluted tubule, these cells, they are adapted for this reabsorption. The cells, they have lots of microvilli, and this is reabsorption, it is done by active transport. So they have numerous mitochondria also in them. Next comes the loop of Henle. So we have the descending limb as well as the ascending limb. Here, the descending limb, it is permeable to water, while salts, they are mostly absorbed in the ascending limb. So here, as this is permeable to water, most of the water is reabsorbed. And while the ascending limb, it is impermeable to water. And whatever sodium, it's also impermeable to sodium chloride, while sodium chloride, it is absorbed back by active transport. So this ensures hypertonic conditions are prevailing. Here hypertonic conditions will be prevailing. Next comes the distal convoluted tubule. So the distal convoluted tubule, this also absorbs lots of water. Some ions will be absorbed, and here the reabsorption could be under the influence of vasopressin. Based upon the vasopressin or the antidiuretic hormone, reabsorption will be taking place in this area. Next comes the collecting tubule. Here, the collecting tubule, it is responsible for the hypertonicity of the urine. You see that here diffusion of protons will be taking place. So thereby contributing to the acid-base balance within the blood. Next comes the tubular secretion. So this process is mainly done to remove if there are additionally toxic substances or waste products which are retained in the blood, and also for maintaining the ionic balance. So the substances that are secreted out include the hydrogen ions, the potassium ions, ammonia, and most importantly, some drugs and toxins. So this tubular secretion mainly takes place in the distal convoluted tubule and the collecting ducts. So this is mainly responsible for regulating the acid-base balance, and this is done mainly by controlling the hydrogen ion concentrations. So thereby the blood pH, it is maintained. Now let us understand the countercurrent mechanism of urine formation. Here the countercurrent mechanism operates between the tubules of the nephron and the blood capillaries. And because of the osmolarity changes or osmolarity differences between these two, there is absorption or secretion of the ions taking place. The countercurrent mechanism, it is a specialized mechanism that occurs between the loop of Henle and the vasa recta, and this is essential for concentration of urine. It involves the flow of filtrate in opposite direction in the descending limb and ascending limb of the loop of Henle. This mechanism, it creates a concentration gradient in the medulla, allowing the kidneys to produce concentrated urine. You see that this part, until this part, it is present in the cortex, while the rest of the part will be present in the medulla. And you see the concentration gradient which is seen at the medulla. What is the role of the loop of Henle? The loop of Henle, it plays very important role. The descending limb, we see that it is permeable to water but not to salts. So thereby the water can be moved out into the surrounding interstitial tissues. In contrast, you see that the ascending limb is impermeable. So as the urine is going down, the osmolarity in the interstitial fluid, it is around 1200. Same is the case with the vasa recta. The vasa recta also present in the same thing surrounding this. So what happens is, as it is moving up, you see that this is impermeable to water, but it is actively transporting salts out of the filtrate which is formed. So salts will be reabsorbed. Okay, at the ascending limb of the loop of Henle. Now coming to the vasa recta, which is nothing but the blood capillaries. These run parallel to it. So here the loop of Henle, as it is helping to maintain this one, the absorption of water or the ions, it will be taking place along the vasa recta which are present around it, at the loop of Henle. Now as it is going, like all this is taking place in the medulla. As the urine is going up again, here you see that the antidiuretic hormone at the distal convoluted tubule, it also helps in absorption of water and some ions according to the requirement. Then you have secretion also taking place. Here the collecting duct, you see that if the toxins are present, they are secreted out. But again, antidiuretic hormone, okay, it is helping in reabsorption. We know that the collecting tubule ends up in collecting ducts which goes into the medulla. So the inner parts of the medulla osmolarity is high, which means that the filtrate osmolarity is also high. Thereby, the water is reabsorbed and antidiuretic hormone helps it. So this is how the osmolarity outside, along with the presence of the vasa recta, the blood vessels, they enable concentration of urine. So here initially osmolarity, it is less 300. As it is moving down, as the water is reabsorbed, osmolarity goes up. But as the limb is ascending, you see that the membrane itself is impermeable. Thereby, water is not lost. Okay, water is not lost, water is not sent or absorbed, while only sodium ions are done. As it is going to the distal convoluted tubule, again further reabsorption is taking place, while some sodium and chloride ions are also sent. Now, as it is again going through the collecting duct, further concentration is taking place. Thereby, out of the so many liters of filtrate which are formed here, only 1 to 1.5 at the max 2 based upon the water intake, the urine is formed. Maximum 1 to 2 liters per day. That's it. So most of it is reabsorbed and countercurrent mechanism helps do that. Significance of countercurrent mechanism. This countercurrent mechanism, it allows the kidneys to produce concentrated urine during dehydration. When a person has not consumed much of water, then it conserves the water. Thereby the urine is concentrated. One more thing is it helps maintain the osmotic balance, the ion balance within the body. So let us summarize what we have studied. Urine formation, it involves basically 3 steps apart from excretion, that is filtration, reabsorption and secretion. These steps, they are very important for removal of waste as well as to conserve useful substances like water, amino acids, glucose, etc. and even salts. The countercurrent mechanism, it mainly helps in concentration of urine efficiently. This method or this mechanism, it helps conserve water and also fluid balance regulation. Thus, urine formation, it helps maintain homeostasis and proper body functioning. Recommended books for further study include Guyton and Hall Textbook of Medical Physiology, Essentials of Medical Physiology by K. Sembulingam and Prema Sembulingam, or Human Anatomy and Physiology by Elaine and Merab et al. Or you can study Review of Medical Physiology by Barrett, Susan, or this is the Indian other one, Textbook of Medical Biochemistry and Physiology by M.N. Chatterjee and Rana Shinde. Thank you.